do we? We deserve the new car because we give to the church and God loves me. Reaping God's provision is accepting God's provision because He knows our future. We don't. Reaping God's provision is accepting God's provision because we know He knows our future. Next, to reap, give what we have been given. 2 Corinthians 9:6 from last week. Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will what? Also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously, there's that word again, will also reap generously. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the hardest times to give are the times when we are walking in God's provision. Sometimes the hardest times to give are the times when we are walking in God's provision. Now that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But remember, if we're walking in God's provision, we are trusting Him to meet our needs. Meaning, there might not be 6 zeros in the checking account, a pantry full of food, and a paid-off house. But this is where we step out in faith, just like the disciples and the new believers in the New Testament. Their truck or their house wasn't paid off either. But they trusted God so much that they gave sacrificially. We have to do the same. When the Lord tells us what to give, we have to give it. Paul calls this cheerful giving. Now, if you're like me, you might be wondering, that doesn't sound like I would be able to do that cheerfully. Then, like me, God in faith and trust the provider. Reaping God's provision, my friends, requires us to give sacrificially. Reaping God's provision requires us to give sacrificially. Good thing we have a resurrected example of how to do it. Remember, we trust God in the provision of the reaping. It's not by our own strength. We trust that God will bring what you need and more than enough so that you can bless others. Lindsay Heyman brought a picture. His 12-foot cross around Europe and Asia for more than 30 years. I'm happy as of Jesus with those who have never heard.